At my birthday dinner, Mom leaned over and whispered something to Dad. Her voice was low but sharp enough to cut through the sound of laughter and clinking glasses. "While everyone's here," she said, "tell your son to go change the locks at her apartment." I froze mid-bite. My brother, Nathan, heard her and gave a small nod, like it was just another family errand. He left the restaurant quietly, car keys jingling in his hand like a warning bell. At that moment, I told myself to breathe. This was supposed to be a peaceful dinner, a rare ceasefire, just one evening without chaos. My parents, Nathan and his wife, a few relatives, all of them gathered around the table I'd paid for. I kept hoping, foolishly maybe, that this year would be different, that maybe Mom would finally remember this was my birthday, not another opportunity to manage my life like one of her projects. But she never disappoints in proving me wrong. Every year, she turns my celebration into a family strategy meeting. This time, it was about me again, my apartment, my locks, my boundaries. And of course, Dad didn't question her order. He never does. "Do it after dessert," he muttered, as if changing my locks behind my back was a casual favor. I didn't say a word. I just smiled politely, cut another slice of cake, and pretended not to hear. Inside, my stomach churned, but on the outside, I looked perfectly composed. An hour later, when Nathan came back, his face was pale, almost ghostly. He stood beside Mom's chair, his voice barely above a whisper. "Mom." "There." She frowned. "Well? Did you do it?" He swallowed hard. "Mom. There's police tape around her door." The entire table went silent. Every fork stopped midair. Dad's eyebrows knitted together. "What kind of joke is that?" Nathan shook his head, trembling. "It's not a joke. There's an officer outside the apartment. He said no one's allowed in." There was an incident. The air shifted instantly, cold, sharp, electric. Mom's face drained of color. "What incident?" she demanded, but before Nathan could respond, my phone buzzed on the table. An unknown number flashed across the screen. The text made my blood run cold. "M. Reeves, this is Officer Grant from Portland PD. Please contact us immediately regarding your apartment." My hands trembled, chairs scraped as I stood. Mom's voice shook behind me. "Lord, what's going on?" But I didn't answer. I just grabbed my purse and walked out, her questions following me all the way to the door. Outside, the night air hit me like glass, sharp and cold. My car keys rattled in my hand, but my thoughts were suddenly crystal clear. If there was police tape around my home, then something was deeply wrong. By the time I reached my apartment complex, 2 patrol cars were still parked out front, their lights painting the brick walls in red and blue shadows. An officer stepped forward, clipboard in hand. "Miss Reeves?" I nodded quickly. "Yes." "What happened?" He glanced down at his notes. "You're the tenant, correct? We received a report of a break-in. Your door was forced open, but nothing appears stolen. The scene's been sealed for investigation." I blinked, the words sinking in. "A break-in? Who would?" He lifted a hand gently. "We're reviewing footage. Do you know anyone who might have access to your keys?" For a long second, I just stared at him, then the truth came out in a whisper. "My brother. Nathan Reeves." His pen stopped midair. "And why would your brother break into your apartment?" I hesitated, feeling the weight of the truth. "Because my mother told him to." The officer looked up sharply. "Can you repeat that?" I nodded, more certain this time. "She asked him to change my locks tonight, without my permission. I think he found something he wasn't supposed to." Before he could respond, his radio crackled. A voice came through, crisp and urgent. "We've got a match on the prints inside. Sending ID to command." The officer's expression shifted, surprise, then something darker. He exhaled slowly, eyes meeting mine. "Ms. Reeves," he said carefully, "you might want to sit down for this." So I did. I sat on the cold curb outside my own apartment, the chill seeping through my dress. Officer Grant crouched beside me, tablet in hand. "The prints inside," he said, "don't belong to you or your brother." My pulse spiked. "Then whose are they?" He turned the screen toward me, his face unreadable. A man named Thomas Hale, he said. Does that name mean anything to you? My breath caught in my throat. Thomas, I soon learned, wasn't a stranger at all. He was my landlord's nephew, the man who handled maintenance calls, replaced light bulbs, and fixed leaky sinks without ever making eye contact. Officer Grant nodded grimly. He's currently in custody. We reviewed the surveillance footage. He broke into your apartment last night using a copied key. My heart sank. Using a key copy? Grant's expression darkened. Yes. He's been under investigation for a string of unlawful entries across the complex. It appears your apartment wasn't the first. My stomach twisted painfully. Then what was he doing inside mine? Grant hesitated for a long second, his eyes flicking toward the stairwell. You may want to see this yourself. He led me down the corridor, the smell of old paint and dust heavy in the air. My door stood half open, the splintered wood around the lock jagged like a wound. Inside, everything looked normal. Too normal. Nothing was stolen, nothing overturned, except for one chilling detail. Every single framed photo of me and Liam, my son, had been flipped face down, every one. A cold weight settled in my chest. On the coffee table lay a single envelope, perfectly centered, untouched. Grant gestured toward it. That was on the couch when we arrived. My hands trembled as I picked it up. The paper thick and clean, the kind that didn't belong to chaos. Inside was a single printed message, each letter precisely aligned. Tell your mother the truth always finds its way home. My throat went dry. This doesn't make sense, I whispered. Grant studied my face carefully. We're running forensics on the letter, he said. Do you have any idea what it might mean? I stared at the words again, the neat printing, the way tell your mother hit like a dart straight to my chest. It wasn't random. It was direct. My pulse raced as realization crept in. He wasn't breaking in to steal anything, I murmured. He was delivering something. Grant frowned. Delivering what? I swallowed hard, my voice barely audible. A message meant for her. Not me. And suddenly, my mother's tense whisper at dinner, her urgency, her panic. It didn't feel like control anymore. It felt like fear. The next morning, sunlight cut through the blinds like knives. 3 missed calls from Mom. One from an unknown number. I pressed play on the voicemail from Officer Grant. Ms. Reeves, we've confirmed that Thomas Hale was paid by an anonymous bank transfer last week, traced back to an account under your mother's name. For a moment, I couldn't move. The air in my apartment grew heavy, pressing against my chest. My own mother had paid the man who broke into my home. I called Grant immediately. You're sure? Yes, he said, calm but firm. The payment was labeled as maintenance services, but given the timing, and the note, it appears deliberate. We believe your mother may have been trying to retrieve something. I laughed bitterly. Retrieve what? I own nothing she can't already manipulate. Then I froze. The box, the attic box I'd found last month, marked Dad's business papers. Inside were property deeds signed by both of them, documents that had never been declared on their taxes, and I hadn't told a soul. Grant's tone sharpened. Ms. Reeves. Does your family have any? The paper thick and clean, the kind that didn't belong to chaos. Inside was a single printed message, each letter precisely aligned. Tell your mother the truth always finds its way home. My throat went dry. This doesn't make sense, I whispered. Grant studied my face carefully. We're running forensics on the letter, he said. Do you have any idea what it might mean? I stared at the words again, the neat printing, the way tell your mother hit like a dart straight to my chest. It wasn't random. It was direct. My pulse raced as realization crept in. He wasn't breaking in to steal anything, I murmured. He was delivering something. Grant frowned. Delivering what? I swallowed hard, my voice barely audible. A message meant for her. Not me. And suddenly, my mother's tense whisper at dinner, her urgency, her panic. It didn't feel like control anymore. It felt like fear. The next morning, sunlight cut through the blinds like knives. 3 missed calls from Mom. One from an unknown number. I pressed play on the voicemail from Officer Grant. Ms. Reeves, We've confirmed that Thomas Hale was paid by an anonymous bank transfer last week, traced back to an account under your mother's name. For a moment, I couldn't move. The air in my apartment grew heavy, pressing against my chest. My own mother had paid the man who broke into my home. I called Grant immediately. "You're sure?" "Yes," he said, calm but firm. "The payment was labeled as maintenance services, but given the timing, and the note, it appears deliberate. We believe your mother may have been trying to retrieve something." I laughed bitterly. "Retrieve what? I own nothing she can't already manipulate." Then I froze. The attic box I'd found last month, marked Dad's business papers. Inside were property deeds signed by both of them, documents that had never been declared on their taxes, and I hadn't told a soul. Grant's tone sharpened. "Ms. Reeves, does your family have any? You've been protecting lies, not me." Her mask slipped, just a little. "So you think you're smarter than us, Lauren? You have no idea what those documents could expose. Your father could lose everything." I let the silence stretch before pulling out my phone and hitting record. "You mean the undeclared properties? The offshore accounts listed under my social security number?" Her eyes widened. What have you done?" "I finally learned how to stop being your pawn." She stood abruptly, her voice rising. "You wouldn't dare ruin this family." I met her glare evenly. "You already did, Mom. The only difference is, I'm not covering for it anymore." Her expression hardened, her face transforming into something sharp. "Cold and unfamiliar. You'll regret this," she hissed. I smiled faintly. "Maybe. But at least it'll be my regret." Outside, thunder rumbled, low and distant, like the sky itself agreed. Lightning flashed across the windows, casting jagged shadows through the room. My mother began to pace, heels clicking like a metronome of tension. "You don't understand what's at stake, Lauren," she said, her voice low, dangerous. "If those documents go public," my mother said, her voice trembling just enough to show the fear behind it, "your father could face prison time. The entire family's reputation will be destroyed." I cut in before she could twist the story again. "When you put my name on fake property deeds to hide your assets, you already destroyed it." Her face went perfectly still. The silence that followed was deafening, stretching long enough for the storm outside to echo in the space between us. "I found everything," I continued, my voice steady now. "Transfers made under my ID. Signatures that aren't mine. Even emails to Thomas. You didn't just drag me into your lies, Mom, you built them on me." For the first time that night, her voice cracked. "You were supposed to trust us." "I did," I said quietly. "For 29 years. And all it got me was debt, therapy, and a lock changed by your son." She flinched at that, her chin lifted slightly, like she was trying to recover the authority she no longer had. "You wouldn't go to the police," she said. "You're not that cruel." I looked her dead in the eyes. "You broke into my home. You forged my name. You put my child at risk. What would you call that?" Her shoulders slumped for the first time. A tiny, fleeting glimpse of the woman beneath the armor she'd worn all her life. "We did it to protect the family," she whispered. "No," I said softly. "You did it to protect your image." When she finally turned to leave, she paused by the door. Her hand lingered on the handle. "If you go through with this," she said coldly, "you'll never have a family again." I met her gaze without blinking. "Then maybe it's time I build one worth having." The door closed behind her with a final, hollow sound. Thunder rolled again, but this time it didn't scare me. It sounded like applause. Tomorrow, the documents would go to the investigator, and for the first time in my life, the truth, my truth, would finally belong to me. The next morning, I drove straight to the Financial Crimes Division. The rain had just cleared, leaving the streets slick and shining, every puddle reflecting pieces of the life I was finally facing head-on. Beside me on the passenger seat sat the folder, my evidence. My story, my freedom. Officer Grant met me in the lobby, his expression serious but kind. "You're sure about this?" he asked quietly. "I'm done being their cover story," I said, handing him the file. Inside were everything. the deeds, the wire confirmations, screenshots of every message that proved my parents had used my identity to hide money from federal audits. Years of deception condensed into a handful of neatly labeled pages. Grant flipped through them, nodding slowly. This is airtight. Once this goes through, they'll open a full investigation. You'll be cleared of all liability. I exhaled, feeling the weight I'd been carrying my whole life finally loosen. Good, I whispered. I've spent too long carrying their mistakes. That afternoon, I turned off my phone and drove to the hospital to pick up Liam from his follow-up appointment. He came running down the hall, his little sneakers squeaking against the floor, holding up a sticker the nurse had given him. Mom, I got a gold star, he said proudly. I laughed, kneeling to pull him into my arms. So did I, baby, I murmured. You just can't see mine yet. When we got home, I sat at the kitchen table, opened my laptop, and typed one final email to my mother. The files have been turned in. Please stop contacting me. If you need a lawyer, I recommend the same one who told me to protect myself. Then I hit send and closed the laptop. No trembling, no guilt, just clean, quiet silence. That night, while Liam slept, I stood by the window watching the city lights flicker like a pulse returning to life. They had built a world out of lies, and I had finally learned how to live without them. And for the first time, that felt like justice. A month later, the investigation became public. News outlets ran headlines like, "Local couple under federal review for identity fraud, daughter reported as victim." I didn't watch the coverage. I didn't need to, I'd already lived the headline. The banks froze their hidden accounts, my father resigned from his company in quiet disgrace. My mother stopped calling, not out of respect, but out of shame. For once, her silence wasn't punishment. It was peace. Officer Grant called to update me. The case will go to court soon, he said. You've been cleared entirely. You did the right thing, Ms. Reeves. I thanked him softly, then looked at Liam, who was sitting on the living room floor, lining up his toy cars in perfect rows. He didn't know the details, but he understood the truth that mattered most. His mother wasn't afraid anymore. That evening, I hosted a small dinner at home, just a few close friends, the ones who had stood by me when everything fell apart. We toasted not to revenge, but to freedom, to starting over, my friend Nina said, raising her glass, and, I added with a smile, to never apologizing for protecting yourself. After everyone left, I tucked Liam into bed and stood for a long moment at the window. The city lights below looked softer now, like forgiveness reflected on glass. I thought of my parents, not with anger, but with clarity. They had taught me the most brutal lesson of all: love without boundaries becomes a weapon. The next morning, I mailed a single envelope to the district attorney's office. Inside was the last missing document, the final link to their offshore account. No note. No explanation. Just the truth. When I sealed it, I whispered to the quiet morning, "This ends here." Then I turned to Liam, who was waiting at the kitchen counter, grinning up at me. "Ready for breakfast, champ? Can we have pancakes?" he asked, eyes wide. "Always," I said, and just like that, life moved forward.